Are we on?
Yep, we're good.
Okay. All right. So we'll call this to order. Everyone to have this board meeting, they usually want to speak. So.
Quite surprised. I do, but I couldn't remember these. I had to get my address. A few things. Coming up very soon, the police department will be doing a program at the Slusher Center on scammers and fraud. And right around the same time, the fire department will be doing a program at the Slusher Center of First Aid. Dan Kuchar, who is our buildings and grounds person, he's been with us, oh, it's getting close to a year now. Made some great shelves upstairs in the closet, so we're working to get stuff organized, which is good. He made bins for all the computer cords and things like that we have. And just a huge shout out to Christine and Carol for today was just crazy. So with people getting their ballots, the line was here from open to close, almost before and after.
Yeah, and thank you to everyone who helped set up for the election tomorrow, and preemptive thank you to our.
Also, Sarah, preliminary work. Considering how to proceed. Also like to thank Neil for doing another very good presentation of cookies with gas. We had a good turnout for that, and it's coming Wednesday morning. Neil and I will be doing that presentation together.
Yeah, 22 at the library. So I thought that was really good.
That's great.
Solid.
Another thing is the Energy Committee is going to be co-sponsoring with the library and the school's Energy Committee and several other groups on April 26th. The New Hampshire State's button-up workshop. It's an hour and a half presentation on improving energy efficiency in your homes. It's in effect paid for by the utility, but it's viewed as an educational thing. From in terms of co-sponsoring, we just help get the word out. We don't have to spend any money on. And wanted to ask the select board if we would also like to co-sponsor. Again, this means helping get the word.
So it's about that we try to put our foundation.
Thank you.
We make a motion.
Sure, I'll move that the select board become a co-sponsor of the New Hampshire Savings Button-Up Workshop on April 26th at the community room in the library at 6:30 p.m. Seconds.
All in favor? All right. Any other? So. 10 minutes to be different. So first up under administrative is approval of consent.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda of March 13th of the 23rd.
Second.
All in favor? All right. Approval of the public meeting minutes from February 21st, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. And approval of non-public meeting minutes from February 21st, 2023.
I'll move the note to not see it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. So under old business, the town meeting 2023 voting day updates.
I don't really, I put that on there not knowing on Friday if there'd be any updates. I think
10 minutes.
that's true. And I think for Saturday, both the presentation, if you have any slides to add, just send them over. And the script of all you've received before and then again in the packet of Friday. I know Ken asked for
Yeah.
a picture of
Damn.
the dam, so hopefully that works. It's hard to capture the most, but it should give a sense. And the state provided KJ from the Monterey Commission provided the slides. Okay, so to kind of explain what he knows.
And tomorrow, Stephen, Ken and Thomas will be there.
Yes,
Jeff, I cannot.
6:45.
I'm driving to get a motor, so it's going to be there by 6:30.
Okay, yeah, I'll be there by 6:45.
Very cool. Okay, so anything else for tomorrow or Saturday? Well, we go for Saturday. And then in our business accounting committee, I think we've gotten all of the applications, we just need to review them. So there'll be more to come on that. Okay, so. We talk the boat launch name or
Sure, so I sent you that was submitted. It almost seems like it's a bigger question of naming how things get named. So, just in general.
This full launch, the one.
This is at the Llewellyn Bandstand, but it's the kayak kind of down the hill. And Tom Walton certainly did do drawings and use that a lot. So I think that was, he had met with the board and about improving that. So he certainly had an interest, but we don't, if not now, in the not too distant future, it seems like having a policy that sort of determines when you're not talking about a specific person, how things get named. Yeah.
Is he?
And he passed January, February, in the not too distant past.
So I assume we don't have a policy on.
We don't have any. It's sort of in the past has just kind of, I don't want to say randomly been done, but it's kind of, I don't want to sound like
What else is named in town? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think so. I'm not sure. I know there was talk of naming some of the Houston fields, but I think it was decided not to, and they're just field 1, field 2, field 3, field 4.
Yeah.
But that's yes.
Breakers for leaving. Or moving forward, and something that can move forward. I'll do a little digging in that. There's too much guidance that.
I didn't know from the letter also that they were going to fix up
I had suggested that if they had a plan of what this would mean, that they provide that, and I haven't heard back. Because often somebody will come and say, this is the plaque we want to put up. or something.
So there was one. Yeah, for the. But I think Sarah can not discuss, we try to have for. The public hearing on South Road. Okay, we can have Can I ask a question?
Yeah, so the housing committee, you've got all the applications, all of you know when you'd be selecting the five.
I would think hopefully with like some flexibility. Or 2 weeks. Let's see, I mean, it sounds like the election's gonna be postponed, so I don't know what that does. I guess we meet again, I think, or. I don't know. So, yeah. So that was a little bit of a ring to things, but I think we have everything, we just have to review it, so. Yeah.
So there's no weapons tomorrow.
It's not our call. So Sarah Pacino is the moderator and she makes the call and I just got a message. She's gonna come out after the public hearing to talk to us about it, but it sounds like that's. Yeah. So. Yeah.
But it's all set up.
Okay.
Oh, no, the election is. I guess we'll do it again. That's all right. We'll be good. SNOMED, yes. So we now officially own the trail that was the railroad bed, the TDS, that used to be the SNOMED trail. And they would like permission to start using that again.
Which piece is this?
This is the trail that goes from. Let's see, let me call that up.
They already have permission for the small section of the road. This is for the.
Well, they did before. Let me pull this up. Oh, there we go. So, where it says trail closed, existing trail to Warner is Houston Field. And you come down, the library that's basically points at the library. And you come down onto the trail closed, and then that piece that cuts out to Kearsarge, the town owns. They had been using this for lots of years. TDS owned where it says trail closed, but we now own that.
And the portion off of Kearsarge, 39.1.
We own, and they were using that before. This is where the rail trail grant will put the rail trail, but they'd like to start using it sooner rather than later, given there's probably more snow now than there's been at any other point in the winter.
Okay. Please, thank you.
So if you agree to that, print out the one that's filled out here. You sign it before you leave.
Yeah.
I put it for 1 year, just figuring, not knowing.
Okay. Then
1 year and the local board transfer.
And I'm going to do the, values request for everyone.
Actually, if you add that I can sign it on your behalf, I'll just print it out after and sign it and get it to them.
I wanted to second it right away.
all in favor?
Aye.
No, okay. All right, so it's 6:01. We can open the public hearings on laying out the road.
I don't have as many. I have this,
Oh,
I
yeah,
can print some more. Just.
so I'll just do a quick intro, because this petition came to the select board, just to be clear, this is not something generated by the select board. We are just following the process right now. This is a petition from Nicholas, who lives on the road. And he petitioned the select board, and there's a list of reasons for petitioning to merge this road. I can just list off what comes into us. And arguments for it. One is including roads and roads particularly challenging road conditions. 2, creates network redundancy and reduces the gravel road wear. 3, redirects through traffic on South Road to a safer intersection with 377 in Dumbarton. 4, reduces traffic volumes or insufficient bend on South Road. 5, reduces traffic volume or insufficient width portion of South Road. 6, 3 to 5 new building lots unlocked 1,000 feet of frontage on lot 22. 1. 7, joins South Road to paved modern Hopkinton Road at Dunbarton Town Line. 8, utilizes high and dry corridor that was low yearly maintenance demands. And my computer will not load any further. I think that was it though.
Yeah, thank you.
So do anyone, we just did a little field trip out to look at this section of the classic road. Does anyone on the board want to make any comments, or we will open it up to? Open it up. All right. So we are having people's comments on it. If you, is this on?
I think so.
No, it's one rather.
Where you going to?
So we'll leave that on here. So
Hang on 1 second. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Why is it red?
Yeah,
I.
you did the test. Yeah,
Is that one on?
this one is not with no color.
Oh, now?
Oh.
Yeah, I think it should be, I think maybe you can turn off testing.
Huh. Well, nobody's, is anyone on? Nobody's on.
There's no one on. That one.
That's not really clear for this one.
No, that sounds like it usually does for that.
All right, so we're good, you think? This mic here.
Yes, I
Okay.
hope.
So if you would like to comment, please raise your hand and you can come up and come to the table and speak here so that we'll pick it up on the mic. And yes, please say your name and address.
So would anyone like to come and make a comment on? Actually, okay, so your hand was up first, so go ahead.
Hussey,
Hot seat,
Hussey.
it's a friendly hot seat.
Okay, I've done up a packet with my justifications for the decisions I came to.
Will you say your name and address?
Yeah, my name is Paul Sanborn. I live in 1431 South Road, which is tax map 254, lot 21. 6 copies. My decision being on the front page. After careful consideration of the proposal, I do not see enough positive outcomes to this proposed upgrade to overcome the negative or no change comments or outcomes that can be predicted, that I can predict rather. The following attached documents detail how I came to my conclusions. I've got a list of the documents attached. I've got the notice of public hearing with the tax map attached. I am lot 21. The lot in question is 22.1. So I am in a butter to the west. Then I go into details on South Road. I've been on South Road for 39 years and go from there. Would you like me to read through?
I don't think you need to
I
read,
tried to highlight.
but yeah, highlights would be great. Thank you.
Okay, one thing I missed, and that's because I'm not a road guy, but this can the class 5 road be a gravel road? Or is this going to be a paved road?
I believe it could be gravel.
Okay,
Yes. It does not have to be paved.
because then, I wasn't aware of that when I wrote this up, but that could change just a couple of things here in my thinking. Fugitive dust being one of the considerations that would come into it, because I'm on a portion of South Road now where I haven't been able to take my storm windows off for 20 years. I can't open my front door during the summertime because of fugitive dust. Okay, another consideration, I don't know if it affects the decision or not, is the impact on Dunbarton, the old Hopkinton Road section. I have included a tax map of that portion, which shows that there are 20 parcels, 20 residential parcels. The second you get over the Dunbarton town line. And those folks are currently living in a cul-de-sac or a dead-end road. With the only traffic on that road probably being the residents and those commercial vehicles that service those residents. If the project goes forward, that's going to put traffic from South Road onto that road at between 30 and 50 miles an hour. Posted speed limit on South Road now is 25 miles an hour. We see traffic between 30 and 50 miles an hour all the time, which is what contributes to the fugitive dust problem in the summertime and safety issues year round. Any questions?
Any questions? Don't think so. Thank you for this thorough.
I've tried to be very thorough.
Yes, this is helpful. Thank you. We appreciate your input. Are you good or have anything else you want to highlight?
I'm good.
Good. All right. Thank you. Yeah, I was gonna say, Nicholas, do you want to come up as the petitioner?
Sure, if it was appropriate to lead off or not, but happy to speak. I'm Nick Lewis, everyone. I issued the petition for the layout. I also have 1,100 feet of frontage on the existing Class 6 road. Of course, an interest in a Class 5 road, which would allow portions of my lot to be subdivided, as well as my neighbor, Mr. Poor, who also has 700 plus feet of frontage on the Class 6 road today. First, thank you, Mr. Sanborn. I just wanted to address the class 6 versus class 5. You know, South Road today is a class 5 road. Whether dirt or pavement, I think it's class 5 can be. Yeah. So I guess on April 11th, 2022 is when I met with the select board and we first discussed this potential project. With regards to the impacts on Dunbarton and the 20 residential parcels, I agree that there will be thereby created a shortcut from those residences to 9202 and the corner store over there. I do see Jewett Road and Sugar Hill Road being paved, continuously paved from Route 77 to the 9202 corridor as the corridors that will continue to absorb the bulk of the traffic, particularly high-speed traffic or larger vehicles. So while I agree that Dunbarton, you may see some vehicles that are traversing that way, I do expect it to be local only. Anyone coming from Page's Corner would likely take Jewett Road. And likewise, anyone coming from deeper in Ware would likely pass through Sugar Hill Road's paved corridor, either then onto Stump Field or continuing on Sugar Hill Road. Working in transportation, as I have for 20 plus years, I see that particular alignment as favorable in the sense that there doesn't appear to be water in any measurable volume trying to seek crossing from one side of the road to the other. Thereby, I think ditch lines along either side of the road would provide the ample drainage without a bridge or a culvert necessary. I don't foresee wetland impacts. But most of all, and I included a map to a recent letter to the select board. It was an 1892 map showing the straight alignment of South Road continuing on what is now called Old South Road, and then continuing further on to what is now called Old Hopkinton Road. That was the main thoroughfare. Geometrically, it was the straight shot. The dogleg portion that turns 90 degrees where South Road meets Old South Road, and then turns 90 degrees again to head toward Ware, was sort of an offshoot of the main alignment. So I see this as a restoration of an existing corridor that was abandoned, not because of anything Hopkinton did in the past, but because of the very wet, difficult portion of the alignment that is situated in Dunbarton. So in 1892, we saw a healthy alignment of a roadway passing through the corridor we're speaking of now. 1927, similarly. The 1985 USGS quad shows the abandonment of the Dunbarton portion of the road, reverting to a Jeep road. It says 4-wheel drive only. Now Dunbarton since then has come in, raised the road, improved it with a base and a paved course, and then also put in 20 residential lots, as Mr. Sanborn mentioned. So the deficiencies that once plagued the road such that it was abandoned no longer exist on the Dunbarton end. So I see this project not as an expansion of the road network, but a restoration of the road network as it was contemplated when it was laid out originally. Do I have an opportunity to speak more than once if there are questions or concerns that come up in the meeting?
Doubt anyone would object to that. I think
Okay.
that's fine. Yeah. I mean, we don't want like back and forth in the crowd, but if there's like some pressing issues. then-
Specific question.
Okay. So I'd be happy to explain my understanding of the corridor, the restoration project, my anticipated maintenance costs, which are not estimated with any true certainty. They're just based on my understanding of taking an existing clear corridor from a relatively dry, competent, stony base to a traversable gravel road. The costs, including clearing, crushed gravel and a top course of gravel, and then the associated equipment costs. I see these as affordable and offset by what would become an increase in taxable land in the form of 3 to 5 building lots. And I see it as an assignment that the capable road crew of Hopkinton could handle seasonally. I've seen them come in and really bail us out of some difficult spring situations over the past 3 years. This has been a longer mud season, but thankfully it's actually been a gentler one. And this, I think the crushed gravel from last year has done its job. But I'd be happy to speak or answer questions. But at this point, I think I'm happy to open the floor to other comments.
Yeah, Stephen.
One quick question. My understanding is that you're not proposing or offering to pay for the upgrade of the road to make it class 5. Is that correct?
That was never discussed.
Okay. Okay.
So that option should remain open, whether it's a cost share. I thought the petition process was, I thought that the public meeting, town meeting process was the one where I would have to pitch either a full or cost share. But I'm happy to discuss that here or later.
Okay.
And, you know, to discuss that intelligently, I would of course need to get some quotes and see if it's even feasible.
Yeah.
Or capable of being offset by the subdivisions.
I mean, I guess we would consider your layout petition either way. And
Okay.
so it depends on if you want to offer that or not. I'm not suggesting you should or shouldn't.
Sure.
I'm just trying to clarify what you're proposing so that everybody here knows what you're proposing and so that we know what you're proposing.
So I'm happy to entertain a cost share of the project. That's of course not, there's no cost estimate in place. So I'm underprepared to make that commitment. at this
Okay.
point.
Okay, and I'm not trying to push you one direction or the other, just want to understand what you're proposing. That's all.
Yeah, I would be happy to entertain that, and that would be after obtaining an estimate from, I'm not sure even if this is something that could be estimated by town forces, public works director, or if it would be a private contractor.
We have a cost estimate that was given to us as part of our packet.
Okay.
And yeah, it was about 700,000 to bring it up.
And that's not paved. It's gravel.
Yeah. There it was.
That's well outside of the estimate that I would have arrived at.
Yeah, that's the best information that we have, I think, right now.
Source.
Believe it came from DPW. Art, isn't that right, Neil? Yeah. Yeah, it's up right there, Nick, on the screen, the big screen right there. Oh, it was. So I don't want this part of it to sort of bog down the public hearing. So that's, I mean, you've already answered sort of the question that I had for the time being. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think the network would benefit from the road restoration. I'm sure that the road network would benefit from the restoration of this alignment. And the redirection of traffic to the Route 77 intersection with Old Hopkinton Road is one that I think would enhance the safety of everyone living on South Road if they would seek egress to Route 77 via Old Hopkinton Road. It's a geometrically safer, far less accident-prone intersection. But as far as that cost estimate and not being bogged down by it, the cost estimate feels high based on what we have out there and what would be required. But a discussion on cost splitting, I'd be happy to entertain. I think that if the decision is going to hinge on my ability to cost share. Of course, have to delay and gain more information and alternate bids. Okay. Thank you.
All right, any other questions for Nick? All right, thanks, Nick.
Thanks.
All right, I think I saw this middle hand go up first. You want to come up?
Sure. Oh, go now because I have animals I have to tend to. When it gets dark and my sense is you're gonna be here when it's dark. So, my name is Dave Eliason. I live at 1153 South Road. We have a pasture, horses, a barn, nice place. We're down about, well, we're the last house before the curve on the left. I guess first question is just in general, I did not receive any notification about this meeting or anything, so that's a problem. Don't know why. So is it, you know, if it's my responsibility to watch out for these kinds of things, then I failed, but I didn't get any notification at all.
All the abutters as well as mortgage holders and everybody was notified,
I'd like to know how it was notified, because
certified.
I never got a certified notice.
You're not on the road.
The butter.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, so, okay,
You're just one house down.
I'm one house down, but I certainly can tell you that I'm gonna experience the negative effects from being that close, okay? So I would submit to you, sir, that the arrangement that you're providing, that you're suggesting here probably benefits financially nobody except yourself. And I'd like to know how I benefit from it. I've lived there for 6 years. I can't see how I benefit from it. I see that it's not a restoration, as you use the soft word. That is something from over 100 years ago, when that road was used predominantly for horses, carts, buggies, not FedEx trucks going 50 miles an hour in front of my house. So I also have the same problem with dirt and dust. And now, don't get me wrong, we don't want it to be paved. We like it in a dirt road, but you know, if nothing else, it'd be great to get another 25-mile-an-hour posted sign down there in front of the house somewhere. Okay. You know, because my taxes are going up certainly enough to pay for that. We ride horses along South Road. We try to be very careful. We try to use bright colors and so on. We try and tell people we're there. People who are local know that there's horses around. We're not the only ones that have horses on South Road. Other people here tonight have those too. People going quick, you know, down the road is just another accident waiting to happen. People aren't used to that. You say it's could bring 3 to 5 houses. Well, there's not going to be single people living in those houses. Is there going to be families living in those houses? This town is all about families and 4 people per, you know, 3 to 5 people per household, 2, 3, 4 cars per household, 3 to 5 houses. That could be anywhere from 9 to 15 extra cars going down that road back and forth at any given hour of the day, at any given speed limit that they probably want. So we like it the way it is. We don't want to change it the way it is. Okay. And frankly, that's just my spiel. Okay. That's my input as a taxpayer here. And I hope that you guys take into account everybody's opinion here. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you mind if I ask a question? Do you ever ride horses? I'm asking because when we looked at classic roads before, we couldn't get a lot of input on horse riding on the trails. Do you ever ride up Old South Road?
Yeah.
Or do you ever go down New Road? How often? Do you know how often that's used for horse riding?
I mean, my daughter rides down there. I don't know how often. there's other people besides ourselves that ride. I've seen other people on that road before. You know, it's a really nice benefit of living down there is having trails and, you know, and someplace that if there's trails over here, like where the green gate is, just where the road turns, where the pavement turns to dirt. There's trails and things you can go in there, but you got to get to there. And if it's dangerous to get to that spot, then people won't use that, people are just gonna not want to go out there. But as far as numbers, I don't know,
Yeah, I'm just curious.
but other people have, I've seen.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Oh, then Bonnie and then this gentleman over here, I saw him. Okay. Bonnie, you can come on up.
I'm Bonnie Christie. I live at 302 Smithfield Road. I am speaking on behalf of the Conservation Commission tonight. You probably have a statement from us in your packet, and I was asked to read it just for the benefit of other people. I also have, I'm going to press around these maps so you can see what I'm talking about. I'll keep one for myself. And I'm passing these. Those maps are from the natural resource inventory that we've just completed the draft of, and it shows wildlife habitat. So I will read you the statement from the Conservation Commission. At its February 21st, 2023 meeting, the Hopkinton Conservation Commission voted to submit testimony in opposition to changing Old South Road from Class 6 to Class 5. This decision was based on the scenic and recreational value to the town of Old South Road and the protection of the abutting protected open space and wildlife habitat. Old South Road is an attractive and easily walked road, accessible to all ages, including families with small children and seniors who enjoy a gentle trail. It connects to Old Hopkinton Road in Dunbarton, which is a quiet residential street. It is a valuable recreational corridor. The road abuts almost 600 acres of contiguous protected open space and conservation land. This open land has a variety of forest and wetland ecosystems which support an unusual biological diversity. Changing the road to Class 5 status would bring vehicular traffic with its associated impacts, including noise and salt and petrochemical pollutants. The Conservation Commission believes this beautiful natural area should be kept as a resource for all the citizens of Hopkinton and remain a valuable ecosystem in our town. Signed by Rob Knight, who's our secretary. So in the map that I showed you, I circled the area in general, and I hope you can see my little lines where Old South Road is. The roads aren't identified on this map. But if you look at the color coding on this map, you will see that this entire area is either the highest ranked wildlife habitat in the state of New Hampshire or the highest ranked habitat in the biological region. And the little white areas just above the arrow where Old South Road goes in, those are wetland areas in there. And then the blue, of course, is water. So you can see there's well over 600 acres of protected and conserved land. There's a big chunk of Audubon land, which is conserved, and Meadows End owns a great deal of this property that's conserved. So it's land that's already protected, and we'd hate to see the protected land and the things that are protected within the land be compromised by a road going in there. I checked with a few people who frequent the area and hunt in there, and the species that were mentioned were deer, bobcats, porcupines, fishers, beaver, heron. There's a big heron rookery in there, osprey, owls, wood ducks, otter, fox, bear, moose, snowshoe hare, reptiles, amphibians, and I'm sure there's more. And the pollutants that we think would have a negative impact on this area, not to mention the people who live there, would be nitrogen oxide, carbon monoxide, particulates, salt, noise, and then there would be stormwater runoff from the surface, whether it be gravel or paved, you would have runoff. So those are some of the valuable resources that we hope will be thought of and protected in the decision-making process here, and some of the things that we think might be detrimental to it. And I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any.
Lonnie? All right, well, thanks for reporting on behalf of the conservation. Thank you. All right, and you, sir.
Yes, I guess I gotta ask you permission first. I'm not a resident of Hopkinton. I'm from Dunbarton.
Oh,
I am the road agent in Dunbarton and I am on planning board. We were notified of the meeting.
Gotcha.
process, And I have some pertinent information.
great. I assume, does anyone have an issue? All right, you're good.
No opinion.
Information is good. Come on
My
up.
name is Jeff Crosby.
If you can talk over here so that we can pick it up on the, have it.
My name is Jeff Crosby. I live at 17 Stark Highway South, Dunbarton, Hampshire. I am the acting road agent in the town of Dunbarton at the present time, and am also a member of the planning board. I'm going to give you a real quick history lesson. I'm not going to bore you with a lot of stuff. The history of Old Hopkinton Road on the Dunbarton side. Early 1990, a gentleman bought 2 parcels of land there subsequently and made it progress through the planning board and the selectman's office. At that time, it was a Class 6 road. He had to bring it up to certain requirements that the town required, which was basically widening it out, a layer of gravel, culverts, the usual stuff, similar things that you people are talking about. He brought it up to a gravel grade. It was completed, accepted. And then a number of years after that, I can't remember the exact date. I wasn't the road agent then, another gentleman was. The town elected to pave the road to protect the investment of all the gravel and all that, because as anybody that lives on a dirt road, they know they're high maintenance and there's a lot of issues that go with it. So fast forward to today. The caveat here is we maintain Old Hopkinton Road as a paved road. We stop short by 150 feet of the Hopkinton town line. It's not paved and we don't maintain it. So there's, I guess you would call it 150 feet of no man's land in there. And to be honest with you, there's no, at the present time, things do change. I do know that. There's no need for us to maintain anything further than that. So that's where we stop. There's 2 driveways opposite each other that we use for our turnaround for maintenance purposes. That's all I got.
All right. Would you be willing to answer questions?
Oh, yeah, certainly.
Just out of curiosity, when that gentleman bought the 2 lots.
Yes,
And had it raised to a Class 5.
yes,
Did he pay 100% of that cost?
yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, he paid 100%. And the only part the town did after a number of years, they paved it. And they assumed 100% of paving costs on that.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you for,
Oh, and the travel surface right now is a 20-foot paved road.
great.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you a lot for inviting us.
First.
And see you people wrangle with the same stuff we do.
All right. Anyone else? Come on up.
Good evening and thank you. My name's Tom Burek and my wife Emily and I live at 1526 South Road. And we neither support nor oppose this layout petition. And we certainly let Nick, our neighbor who's right across the street from us, know that we were not taking a position on this. But having said that, we have a number of questions that we hope that the select board would think very carefully about as you decide and determine whether there would be occasion to grant this petition. First, it's not clear to us whether this highway, as I think by state law would be considered, regardless whether it's Class 5, Class 6, or whatever else, whether it's already approved in a recorded plat anywhere. I doubt that it is. But what this really raises is the question of who actually currently owns the bed of this road? Does it belong to the town or does it belong to some other party? And if it belongs to some other party, who is that other party and how will the town go about compensating that party? Because there would be a taking if that were to occur. So do we know who owns the roadbed itself?
So I think this becomes an issue when you make a new road or close a road, not when you convert from a 6 to a 5. There's no change in the status of the rights of anybody on, because everyone can use it now and everyone can use it then. And there's no change in the ability to use it. So I don't think there's any qualifications of a taking or anything like that. I know that from the discussions of the Class 6 Roads Committee, it's clear that a lot of that legalities is not currently settled. I know there's a lot of cases going through now, especially in Concord around how some of that stuff flushes out. I don't have a better answer than that. But in terms of a taking it, who owns it now, there's no real change between a Class 6 and a Class 5.
Can I add something to that?
Yeah.
So as I understand the current proposal is that they're not asking to widen what's there presently. So there is, I think the best information that we have, there is a Class 6 easement effectively in place for what's there now. And I agree with what Thomas just said, because the proposal is not to widen it any more than that and stay within what is already physically there. Then I don't believe there's any sort of a takings issue with this proposal.
Thank you for that. That's helpful to understand. One of the items that was remarked on, and I appreciated the invitation to the public for folks to be able to attend the site walk that you all took ahead of time. Just as that walk was starting, I believe there was a question about school buses. And I was the one who spoke up and said, in fact, the school buses, and there are currently 2 school buses a day, morning and night, that turn around at that location. There's both a regular school bus, the longer school bus, as well as I think a shorter school bus that will turn around there later. But one of the questions that we would ask the board to think about very seriously is, what are the safety considerations involved in a school bus turning around at what presumably would have to be a T intersection? And then what are the safety considerations that would be necessary for that school bus to then be able to park on the side of the road, where, again, one of the other quirks of South Road is we are one of the farthest sort of out points from the center of town. And so the school bus route pretty much every morning starts there at the end of at that intersection of Old South Road and the other and the Class 6 road there. And there would need to be, if current practice were to continue, presumably there would need to be a place where such a school bus could park. There are families that will drive their cars to that location to drop their children off. And so that safety consideration would need to be important. And this is one of the reasons I raised the taking question, because the town, I think, would want to make sure that there is a sufficient amount of land on the side of the road that the town owns or at least controls, so that you could have safe parking for a school bus as it waited to start its morning route, for example. So that is a situation where I would ask the town to ask the question of is there in fact sufficient land? Does the town in fact own sufficient land currently within that right of way to be able to meet that need? Another need that I would certainly hope the town would look at very closely is drainage and whether drainage easements would be required. You do have a fairly steep hill there. Hills will of their very nature tend to cause more water to flow and flow more rapidly. And so the question is, where is all that stormwater going to go? When we took the site walk today, I certainly noticed that there was a lot of wetness just where we came off the driveway to start up the road. And I have walked this road at all times of the year and been out there many times. And that area is, to my personal knowledge and experience, that area is perpetually wet. And so one of the questions that we would ask the town to look at is to ensure that there has been a full wetlands delineation done of the entire corridor to determine what's wet, what isn't wet, what wetlands permits would the town need in order to be able to have this road constructed here. And then on top of that, how would the town in fact deal with the drainage? Where we were standing there today and we were looking off to the left of where the road starts up the hill, there is during almost all of the spring and sometimes during storm events, there is a steady stream of water running along the side of the road there. And it may well be that the town would in fact need to install a culvert system to be able to take all of that drainage coming off of what would be I guess it would be the east side of the road, to be able to collect that and channel that into into the brook that runs through there. So again, just would ask the town to please look very closely at that and determine that what drainage would be necessary there. In terms of the other end of the road, very much appreciate Mr. Goulis's significant experience as a road engineer and bridge engineer, and certainly respect his thoughts on the potential safety advantages of going out Old Hopkinton Road versus going out Boyce Road. But again, if this is a factor that's appropriate for the town to consider, would respectfully ask the town to ensure that there has been a full engineering study done, because it's not. Again, I'm not an expert on how you measure sight lines, but having driven both of those roads in and out of both of those roads over the years, it appears to me that there would be longer sight lines in both directions from Boyce Road rather than from Old Hopkinton Road. But again, would ask the town to please look at that and make sure we have an understanding of that. It was very helpful to hear the information that the Dunbarton road agent provided regarding their maintenance of their road and that 150-foot gap, because again, another question that I would ask the town to consider is, would there be a necessity of a taking in order to be able to have a place where the town could turn its snowplows around? Where would that turnaround occur? So those are questions that have occurred to us. Again, we don't take any position in support of or opposition to this. We certainly see some potential advantages in terms of maybe a little less traffic in front of our house. But we ourselves would still be driving the same section of South Road, or whether this road is relocated or not. And obviously there are other factors to be considered as well as you make the determination as to whether there is occasion to approve or to grant this petition. So again, thank you for your time. Happy to answer any questions.
Tom, in the estimate that Stephen had referred to, it was two 15-inch culverts assumed. Is a 15-inch culvert, do you think, big enough, or we need something smaller or bigger?
As a non-engineer, I would not even want to venture a guess on that. I would strongly encourage the town to ensure that you hire a qualified professional engineer, civil engineer who could make those determinations. And again, I guess perhaps it goes without saying, but the unfortunate reality is that with a changing climate, we're seeing much more intense rain events than we used to see over shorter periods of time, and particularly with gravel roads. And unfortunately, we see this regularly on South Road. We get a big storm, and as Mr. Goulis has pointed out, we can lose a lot of gravel in a short period of time. And so it's just something that you need to take into account is the sizing of culverts today. They need to be much bigger probably than they used to be, which is very unfortunate, but that's just the reality of what we're up against. Thanks. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Hello. I'm gonna take this off because I'm 6 feet from everybody now. I'm Celeste Hemmingson. I live at 702 Smithfield Road. I am a member of the planning board, but I'm not here on behalf of the planning board. I have a couple of comments. The second one is maybe more of a question. But first of all, as I look at the sheet you handed out, outlining the decision tree for deciding on this petition, I see that the factors that you are being asked to weigh are the public interest factors, which are the reasons to go ahead with this. And then you have the town burden factors, which are reasons not to do it. The public interest factors have to do with mostly ease of transportation, where the town burden factors, and of course, we're all the town, it's not just you folks, as we know and you know. The town burden factors mainly have to do with costs of building and maintenance. I would like to say that another, I don't know if these are examples or if this is some legal requirement that this is all you can look at. I don't know, but.
So I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, please do.
Sorry.
I was hoping you would.
So I created this document. I am a lawyer. I'm not giving the town legal advice, giving the board legal advice. Much of this is taken from A Hard Road to Travel, which a lot of people in the audience are probably pretty familiar with, particularly if you're on the planning board.
Yeah.
And all of the factors here come from A Hard Road to Travel. And my understanding of A Hard Road to Travel is that all that information comes from case law. And so if it's not in A Hard Road to Travel and it's not on this sheet, then I don't know if there's any precedent for considering that information as part of this decision.
Okay. Well, that puts us all in a very difficult situation, because one of the, I would call them town burden factors, would be the loss of an existing town asset. And I'd like to point out that an existing trail is a town asset, and the loss of it is a burden on the town. Now, having said that, I do not understand, and this is my question. Last year, you folks appointed a task force to do a survey of our class 6 roads. I thought that was a wonderful idea, because then there would at least be the basis of some policy on other issues that come up concerning class 6 roads. Thomas Lapoma is in charge of that task force. Has there been a report from it?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, and I can talk about it for days.
Oh,
probably.
well, what is the impact of your report on this case?
So the Class 6 Roads Committee looked at this case, or looked at this road, not this case, but looked at this road. And there's two main purposes of the Class 6 Roads Committee. The first one was to do a general inventory and look at if there was any recommendation to change the class of any of the roads. Out of that, there were 2 roads that were recommended to change, Dump Road and Graves Road. And those are up for, those will come up for discussion at town meeting. This Old South Road was not recommended to change in any way. The other section of the other purpose of the Class 6 Roads Committee, or one of the things we did, was start to develop a policy around, or make comments on a policy for Class 6 building permits, because that comes for the select board and we don't have a policy around it. So that's kind of the next stage from that. But in terms of recommendations for this one, it was found that it was easily accessible for walking, and we don't need to do any maintenance on it. And because there's no real need to do maintenance on it for the purposes of walking, there's not much need to convert it to a Class A trail. So there's no recommendation to change it to a Class A trail. There was comment from the conservation side as well that most of the land around it is already owned by Meadows End. So there wasn't really a need to remove the road or discontinue the road for conservation purposes because so much of the land around it was already kind of in the conservation purpose. So the end result was really there's no need to do anything to this road and there's no recommended change from that committee for this bill.
Will that part of your report be one of the things that you would be considering in this petition?
I think, well, I guess for me, I see this application as a little distinct from that report. Because anybody can submit a layout petition on any class 6 road and we're obligated to consider it and go through this exercise. And so even if we had a policy that, you know, tried to discourage that or took a position one way or the other, we still have to go through and follow the test and, you know, do this exercise that we're doing right now.
Thank you.
And also just for the record, Hard Road to Travel is put out by the New Hampshire Municipal Association for anyone interested.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Celeste.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else want to comment?
I'll comment.
All right.
I'm John Weber. I live over on 102 Fieldstone Road. Is it Thomas Lapoma? What's the comment about the class 6 road and building permits? I'm curious about that.
So one of the main reasons around forming the Class 6 Roads Committee was the issue came up with Boundary Road previously. And that was a petition to the select board in order to allow for a building permit on a Class 6 road. We don't have a building policy around that. So it basically becomes a one-off. We're trying to come up with what we think is the best case for that one time. Many other towns have building policies. And so we formed the Class 6 Roads Committee to look at all of the Class 6 roads in town, inventory them. To one, look at, I mean, there's a lot of weird roads out there. So there's a lot of things that people don't know about. And so look at if there's a reason to convert any of these roads to different classes. But then to also start to make comment on what will eventually be a Class 6 roads building policy. And that policy will be put in place so that if there is a petition in the future from a landowner who wants to build on a Class 6 road, we would have guidelines in place that we could look at and say, well, does it meet these criteria? Yes, no. Have requirements on how the road would be maintained or built, who would have liability over stuff like that. So the Class 6 Roads Committee wrapped up with comments about all of the roads, and then made kind of initial comments on how that Class 6 roads policy could be built. And then the next step is for us to kind of draft that and then comment on it and then vote on it. And then we'd have a policy in place.
Okay. So there is a potential right now to get a building permit.
Yeah, there's always a potential. Even if we have a policy, we could put in place a policy that has extremely strict rules on what has to be followed. But even then, the select board has the authority to, at any point in time, for anybody, give them a building permit on a Class 6 road.
Okay, that's good information. I'm a developer, I'm a builder in town, and I'm pro-development. So I think the town should consider at least entertaining this petition. That's all it is. It's a petition to entertain it. It's not an approval of. And, you know, there's not a lot of buildable lots in our town. And, you know, if this is a pretty simple road upgrade, I think the cost estimate here is probably double than what it should be. But, you know, you could always get other estimates. So I think the real road improvements to that it shouldn't be 750,000. You know, that's a cost estimator doing it probably from a GPS in their office, looking at a computer screen, not actually looking at and surveying the land.
It was actually our DPW though, so.
Who was it?
It was actually our DPW.
Oh, it was.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think it sounds pretty expensive. So I think it's, you know, in contracting, it's important to get several estimates. So I'm for it. I'm for building homes in Hopkinton. I think it's important for our tax base. I think the longevity, you know, supporting the schools through our tax revenue is important. So I support our schools. I support building and developing our land here. And I think if we our knee-jerk reaction is to constantly kick down development ideas. I don't think we're going to be in a great position in 10 years from now. So that's all I got to say.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
I live at 1259 South Road. And I just have a quick question. Did anybody have a chance to review the road and what we're trying to do here? South Road, did anybody actually go and?
Yeah, we just.
Yeah, we just-
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
I missed it. Okay. Well, I am right at the corner, which the proposed, road to go through. And I also am a builder / contractor. I'm not opposed to having people develop the land that they have. However, anything that I've had to develop, it was at my expense and not put on the burden of the town. And what we are reviewing here right now is we see that to improve the road, up to fire codes standards, we have a water issue that runs down alongside that pretty much year round almost until we have the summer draws it out. We have the two options of coming through to 103 from Boyce and over to Farrington Corners. So that exists. So I'm not opposed to someone developing the land, but I am for to add to the tax base burden to the town. I am. And I don't wish anybody bad, a tough time to try to develop that, but and it's it's clean to add to our tax base. So, and it would be to my advantage because I have a buildable lot right up, and if you approve it, it'll make less, avenues I don't have to deal with. So, but right now I'm in a one parcel, and so, but I'm not for adding to the expense between the improvement of the road. You got to bring power through. Just to bring power up to my lot, it was probably about 15 grand, and that was probably 2 or 3 years ago, if I wanted to develop that lot. So, there's a little more expense there than maybe a lot of people don't realize. So, anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak on this? Looks like we have one person online, but they have not raised their hand. Do we, or is that us?
Is that us?
Oh, okay. All right, anyone, this will be the last call for public comment on this public hearing. All right, well, with that, I'll close the public hearing.
You want to see if Nick has anything to offer?
She
may not.
Sure. Nick, do you have anything else you want to offer or?
I want to apologize for being underprepared for the cost discussion. I was under the impression that there would be a comment period where we decided if this project was in fact something that the town of Hopkinton could approve of, regardless of the cost implications. And I know that may seem a little short-sighted. In hindsight, it's like, of course, we need to have all of the factors to say yay or nay. But I truly thought that it was first gaining an approval and then seeking the path forward to actually realize the plan.
I do have a question. Prior to the first one, the land and bought in the homes. You were aware of the landlock that existed.
The question was about whether Nick knew about the existence of the land lot when he purchased the property, just in case you couldn't hear online, and the answer was yes. Okay. All right, with that, we'll close the public hearing. And thank you all for being here. So, okay, do we want to discuss? Yeah.
I appreciate the select board consideration. I appreciate the site visit.
Mhm.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, of course. Thank you all for being here. So,
I wanted to know from Neil, other than the cost estimate, if we'd heard from any other town departments about the proposal.
have we heard from DPW?
Yeah, we discussed it with staff. And I think they didn't have strong objections to the proposal, but certainly were concerned about
Burden of,
cost to do it. Certainly is not on the priority list. To the W or
To the point that was raised earlier, about the school buses, we talked with somebody else.
yeah, I didn't realize the school bus turned around there.
so,
We're using that right away now. Probably.
okay, so the statute. All right, so here's. Thank you for doing this, by the way, Stephen. It's very helpful, a framework for us to work within. So do we want to walk through this and see where we get in terms of assessing?
Do you
Okay,
want me to sort of take the?
yeah, that sounds good since you
All
put
right.
this together.
So there's this test that we're supposed to follow to evaluate this application. And I know that, Neil passed out some copies, and I think the board does. And let me just back up and say, this is the way that I look at this application. I'm not imposing this sort of perspective on any of the rest of you. And so if you guys do something a little different than this or come out differently when you go through this, that's obviously, totally fine. So for me, though, I am going to follow this. It's a two-step process. The first is, are there private rights that are going to be impacted? That's sort of the threshold part of this. And if there are private rights that are going to be impacted, we have to weigh them against the public interest in favor of the layout. As I understand the request, it's in existing class 6 right of way. There's not asking to expand it to go any wider than that. And so I don't think there's any private rights involved here. And so I do think that this proposal clears that first hurdle, which is probably the lowest hanging fruit in this test. And if you get through that first part, then you get to balancing the public interest versus the burden on the town.
Before we jump there, Steve.
Yeah, sure.
And I don't know the answer, but I think Tom Burek brought up a good point about potential drainage easements, potential need for additional parking areas for the school bus to park, if that becomes an active class 5 road.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer, but I think it weighs on that public interest versus private interests.
I guess I don't see it that way because the proposal that we've been given is pretty narrow. It's the proposal that we have in front of us is this is the road that exists. We want to turn it from class 6 to class 5.
Right, but to do that, you have to deal with the drainage issues.
Maybe.
Have to.
Yeah, so the other way to look at it is if there's more land that's needed for parking or for easements, we don't have to do a taking. The town can negotiate with neighboring property owners.
But it's still a financial impact on it.
Exactly, yes, yeah, yeah,
And before we move off, I'm looking at step 1 right now.
yep,
So balance the public interest in the layout versus the rights of the affected landowners. But then it says if the rights of the affected landowners exceed public interest. So in this case, we're talking about the rights of Nick as the
No, this
landowner.
no.
We're talking
would
about-
be- this
Okay.
would be like if the road didn't exist.
Yeah.
It would be taken.
Or we needed, or the proposal was, we have an existing narrow strip of land and we want to expand it.
Right, okay,
Or
so
like a really small.
so in that case,
Yeah.
then the layout's not justified and there's no occasion, but you're saying we're not there because there's no private rights in the, right?
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
suggesting that,
I would agree.
I'm suggesting that in that step one,
Mm-hmm,
that I'm personally going with the last bullet there. That if the public interest exceeds the rights of landowners, then you keep going in the test.
mm-hmm.
Steve, where do you include the conservation issues of the trail as a town asset? Where does that fit into the public interest?
I don't know that it does in my mind.
Yeah, 'cause it
Yeah.
specifically says we're not supposed to consider the development prospects of any of the land.
That is the awkwardness of these things, like when we dealt with that building permit, like towns are not supposed to use class 6 roads as like a backdoor way to conservation, even though in practice they're
Yeah.
sort of used that way, which is why we went through
That's why we-
exercise of maybe converting class 6 roads to class 8 trails, because then they are officially like in
Yeah,
conservation, so.
like a lot of the discussion at the Classic Roads Committee was like, if there is conservation purpose, then we have mechanisms for the town to buy out conservation. We have a trust fund, we have a conservation commission, like their job is to conserve lands. It's not the select board's job to conserve lands through road policies. At the very best, you would say it's the planning board's job to set building policies by zoning and planning. And I think that's why it's pretty specific about these types of things, not contemplating future development.
But it might be in the mix in this idea of like a burden potentially. I mean, I don't know,
All of this is taken from, like I said, hard road to travel, which came from cases in New Hampshire.
mhm,
And so if conservation considerations and potentially losing an asset, if it didn't show up in a hard road to travel, then it hasn't been litigated. And so,
right.
if that's the basis for your decision, then that's fine, but there's just not a sound foundation
Right,
for that.
but I think there's still a lot to get to in terms of weighing public
Yes.
interest and town burdens.
Yes.
We probably don't even have to get to the conservation question.
And I acknowledge the sort of, like you said, bringing the awkwardness of that, because it is rather counterintuitive.
Mhm,
But the fact that we're not even supposed to consider the development potential,
right,
which also is extremely counterintuitive, because, we all heard that if this goes through, that the hope is to, create more lots. We can't, consider that.
mhm,
We basically have to look at this, it's a snapshot of what it is right now. And so, maybe it could turn into 5 more building lots, maybe it could be 30, but we can't really consider that on either side of the equation, on burdens or
I think
benefits.
that kind of makes the entire exercise almost easier. Like,
Yeah.
because we can't consider any of that. And so we're effectively considering the value of spending money on a road to nowhere versus not spending money.
Yes.
okay, so if we keep going, because I think it's helpful to get to the next step, so I agree, we get to step 2.
And so step 2, I'm trying to answer each of these little categories here. And so for me, public and the testimony we heard today was really, really helpful. For me, integration with existing road system, there is a class 6 right of way there now. It would, in some respects, join up with something that exists in Dunbarton. However,
Yeah, we heard some.
however, the road in Dunbarton doesn't go through there. So I don't think that's a really strong one for the public interest. Ease of existing traffic flow. There's not a lot that people travel down to get to when they're using this road, because you can't go to Dunbarton because it is closed off. So I don't think that is a really strong thing to weigh. Improvement to convenience of travel.
Same thing, you know, facilitation of transportation of school children. There's a school bus stop where it branches off. I don't know that converting this to class 5 would really facilitate transportation of school children.
There's no school children in there transport.
Yes,
That's right.
yeah. Improved accessibility to business and employment centers, that doesn't apply. Accessibility for fire, emergency, and police. You know, to the extent there are buildings out here, fire, police can probably get to them by the current South Road. Whether it would benefit a significant portion versus a small fraction of the tax base or year-round residents. I don't think that is a significant thing to weigh because it's a really small fraction. And the frequency of road use, I think, would be really, really low.
Yeah.
So I guess at the end of my sort of calculation of the public interest, to the extent it exists at all, it's fairly minimal. And then moving to town burden, I'll just finish and I'll shut up. Moving to town burden, you know, construction costs to bring the road up to town standards. You know, we have a quote from our DPW. I understand that, you know, some people didn't think that was a very good one. That quote's the best one we have in front of us, and it was, you know, north of $600,000. That doesn't take into account the ongoing maintenance costs for the road that the taxpayers would have to bear. And so I think that the burden here outweighs the public interest. And so because of that, I don't think there's occasion. And my personal viewpoint is that because there's no occasion, that I'm going to vote no on the layout petition.
Yeah. So that was helpful to walk through. And on the cost issue, it's almost like it's not even necessarily relevant. I mean, we know there's a cost, but even if a private landowner said we're going to cover it all, I think the public interest we still fall against it. And you still have the town burden factors of ongoing maintenance costs for the road itself. And then the impact on the town's infrastructure. Okay, so I generally agree with that. Do others have things to add or different viewpoints on it, or?
I appreciated Stephen stepping through the whole process, and I come out the same place she did.
Yeah, I mean, everything that's laid out here from road to travel is on money. Seems like there's not enough upside and too much cost.
Yeah.
It also seems like Dunbar was pretty specific about not making it all. Yeah.
And I appreciate, you know, everyone who came and spoke, but it's interesting thinking about the comment, even if one was pro-development, that's not even something we're allowed to or supposed to consider. So this isn't like commentary on whether we support building a town or not. It's like we're stuck with this awkward sort of analysis and these parameters. And I think it's quite clear when you look at the public interest factors that they just don't win the day here. So it sounds like we're generally in agreement. Okay.
Would you like a motion?
Yeah, I think so.
I will make a motion to deny the layout petition submitted by Mr. Gulas for the reasons that I just articulated for the layout test.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. Okay. All right. That is that. Thank you to everyone who came out on that. Do you have a question about this?
Does that mean it's saying no to it?
We denied the petition, yes. No problem. Like that? Oh, sorry. Yeah. So it sounds like I'm gonna see if Sarah can. Yeah, okay, so the election has been postponed to March 28th. That's Sarah hopefully can come out and speak to that, but I know by state statute, if towns delayed, they had that we couldn't just say we're gonna reschedule it for Wednesday. We have to do it 2 weeks out. So I got as far as saying the election has been postponed and we are stuck with 2 weeks. It's not like we get to decide.
Correct. According to the RSA, it has to be scheduled for 2 weeks after the original date. So that date is Tuesday, March 28th. The decision to postpone tomorrow's elections does not impact the business portion of town meeting, which will still be held on Saturday, March 18th. That's where we're at right now. And additional information will be shared on the town website and on the town Facebook page. If people have questions, they're welcome to reach out. My email is my last name dot my first name, SARA @gmail, which might be on the internet. I hope. Do we have any other questions? Oh, the other thing I want to say is just for anyone who came and voted absentee today because of the winter storm warning, that is all set. Your vote will still go through as an absentee vote. You do have the right to come to the polls on election day, March 28th, if you would prefer to vote in person. We just ask that you do that before we start processing the ballots, which I believe we can start doing at 9 a.m. So if that is your will, we can do that. And I think there'll be additional information about absentee voting if folks will not be available for the rescheduled date to make sure that everyone still has that opportunity. But to the extent that people can share the information with their networks, that's helpful. I've been doing a lot of last minute weather planning.
All right. Thank you for that update.
You're welcome. Need anything else?
Thank you for all your efforts.
Yes.
Dealing with this.
Of course.
Not a fun day.
You know what? It was really fun to see people voting today, and I'm glad they availed themselves of that. But this stress is, you know, it's not a pandemic. So this is fine.
Thank you, Sarah.
We're not having drive-through voting.
No drive-through voting, no mask requirements.
All right. You need help taking things down? Is that gonna have to happen tonight? Or no, because school's canceled tomorrow anyway, but,
We'll figure that out.
okay,
Talk about process, but
yeah. All right. Do you have any updates, Neil?
Let's see,
No.
pretty much getting ready for town meeting, so.
Yeah. Okay, so that'll still happen and just looking at my calendar here. We do have a meeting scheduled for Monday, the 27th, I think. Yeah, okay, so that'll still happen. All right. Any other updates or I'm good?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. We have public forum on the agenda if anyone wishes to speak tonight. Now is your chance, Bonnie.
Sorry to go backwards. I just had a couple of follow-up questions about the discussion on the petition to lay out. I wondered if there is a specific definition of public interest.
I don't feel like I can answer that question. I would defer you to hard road to travel. I think it's
I have it.
defined in case law is, I think, the best I can come up with sitting here.
It's just one of the thoughts I had while you were talking about that is that, you know, having wildlife, protected wildlife and open space and trees sequestering carbon and all that, to me, is in the public interest.
And
Yeah, absolutely. But I didn't know if there was a specific legal definition of that.
there's nothing that like says, you know, in quotes, public interest means blah, 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 blah.
Okay.
Yeah, and the state statutes on all things roads related are not the most artfully drafted and a lot of.
Believe me, I've tried.
Yeah,
to
so,
read.
yeah.
One other question, it's been brought up a couple of times about the select board can't use these petitions as a sort of a backdoor way to conserve land. And Thomas is saying we have other mechanisms for that. And I just wanted to make sure that you understood that we weren't advocating for that. This is already conserved land. We're not for it to be, it's already conserved, so it seems it's in the public interest if there's already conserved and protected land to protect what's already been done legally. So I just wanted to make sure it was
I do.
clear in my statement. I wasn't suggesting
No,
a
no.
backdoor way to do it.
No, I was just making that comment because that is a place a lot of our brains go, I think. But unfortunately, the RSAs and the
Yeah.
is not as clear on
It's all
that.
the Audubon land and the Meadows End land, that's all
Yes.
conservation. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Yeah. And the town meeting doesn't change, right?
No, it's still on for Saturday. Yeah. Hope people can make it. Who makes the call on that? I guess town moderator does.
It's the same.
Yeah. I also, I failed to mention, I promised I would because I'm the select board rep on open space committee. They did not officially vote the way the conservation committee did, but it was unanimous that open space did not support the petition. And we had a couple of people reach out specifically about that. And I meant to mention that during the public hearing, but just maybe for the record, Kara. Okay, does anyone else wish to speak right now during public forum? Louise?
Let's mainly kind of questions for after, so on the 27th, you're getting together again and you're going to talk about the housing committee and select the committee. But are you also going to inform us of like what's next? Like when the meetings are going to be, who we're going to be working under and all that other good stuff?
Yeah, so let's see, who will make that call about meeting cadence and stuff?
Actually, I probably work with the select board who's on that to set up the first meeting. The committee will decide from there.
Yeah, there will be a select board rep. We have not decided who that is. And now we have this delayed election, so don't know, if it'll be the same composition.
I know.
So, yeah, but yeah, I think process wise, it's figure out who's on it and then the meeting cadence, and that just takes a little bit of time. Start probably with the select board rep and then work with Neil and go from there.
Okay, and then we work initially with Ivy, is her name Ivy? Ivy, yes, Van.
Yeah.
Yeah. So would we initially be working with that person to kind of help outline? We did an outline, but since someone's been hired to specifically work on housing, would we be helping her? Like if there was an outline, would we be working together and helping her this? Which also helps us.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, and just so people maybe on the board, just to help, the town got an Invest New Hampshire grant. And the person that Louise is referring to is the person that we hired, the consultant, to help implement that grant. And I don't know if I can answer that question because I think it really is up to the committee to try to sort of figure out how the committee and Ivy can all be sort of rowing in the same direction and not duplicating work.
exactly. So should she also be at that meetings to help that discussion?
Probably, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
That's the intent.
Yeah.
Okay, just,
Yeah.
I hate loose ends.
No, that's
That's
Yeah.
fair.
I like details.
yeah.
Mhm.
Out of your chair.
Thanks, Louise.
Thank you, Louise. All right, anyone else, public comment? Okay, that brings us to other. Does anyone have an other? All right, we have two non-publics tonight. They're both 91A32C, which is reputation. So once we move into non-public, afterwards, we will adjourn and not conduct any other business. So thank you all for joining us tonight. And hopefully we'll see everybody Saturday. Stay safe tomorrow. Someone want to move that we go into non-public?
I will move that we go into non-public for 2 sessions, but both for the same reason. 91A3, Roman 2, little c for reputation. And then after, yeah, I think that's it.
We need to do a roll call vote, right? Go in, yeah, seconded by Ken. All right, Stephen,
Yes.
Ken, yes.
Yes.
All right, I'm just gonna fill up my can with water and take a break.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
We're moving.
yeah. Stephen, thank you for putting together that outline.
Yeah.
Very,
That made it much easier.
Yeah, no
it
problem.
really did. None of these things are intuitive. Like, there's nothing intuitive about Class 6 roads.
This is one of the worst ones, frankly.
Yeah.
Occasion is like a 2-page. I mean, it's just.
often has this come up?
Layouts,
This is the first time I've ever seen the layout.
not as often as, not very often, not very often.